G'day, Justin Hall from RightSource here, talking not-for-profits and things you can do to help make your not-for-profit that you're starting up or thinking about doing more successful. So today I wanted to talk about, well, the doing. So there's a lot of planning and structure and conceptualization, but ultimately someone needs to do something. Like, that's the whole point. And this is where we come to when we talk about governance. It's people and purpose and alignment. It's about people. Who are the people? How do you get those people? What's the doing? How does that start? So when you're starting out, there's, I suppose, an evolution of where the people come from or where those doers come from. First part is you. So you're starting up, you're founding a not-for-profit, you're the one, this is your idea. You're going to be the initial doer to get stuff moving. So the most important thing to understand initially as the core doer is, what is your runway? And this is like any startup, whether it be for-profit or profit-focused or not-for-profit, as the founder, you're going to have a certain amount of time, probably, that you're working for free, that you're putting sweat equity, that you're giving your time to this organization to get it running. What you need to know and be very clear about when at the start is, how long have you got? How long can you work for free? Because this will drive a lot of other decisions that you've got. Also importantly, once you get to the end of that time period, you may need to make a decision. If you've made that decision or you know what's going to happen, so like say you're going to give it 12 months, so 12 months I need to get to a point where I can pay myself a wage as a CEO. If that doesn't happen, then this isn't going to work, or I have to stop. If you make that decision when you start, it makes it a lot easier to make the right decision when you have run out of cash and you can't do this anymore, to stop. But that's very important to know, because that also helps your planning and understand, what you need to get done. That's the first thing. The second place where you'll find the doers. So when you start up a not-for-profit, you'll have a board. There'll be a board of at least 3. Now, you'll most likely be one of those 3. Well, those other 2 are on the board should be engaged to some extent to be able to help do some of the doing. Now, it should be leaning on their skills that they've got, the time that they have available. It probably won't be the same amount as yours because you're the founder. It depends on the amount of how much you've been doing this as a group. But the directors are the next place, and they're usually in a not-for-profit when you start up, the directors are voluntary, so they're not being paid. So they're a good free resource to get. With that, and with the startup, that's then the next place you can look for more doers if you do want to find it. So you will have your initial board, you started up, but if there's other stuff that you identify that you want to get done, you might not have the skills for. If you can identify those skills and recruit other people who might want to be on the board, and be clear that it's an operational board that they're going to be getting their hands in and getting into it, that is a way you can find additional resources to help do the doing of getting the not-for-profit up and running, and leverage different skills that you might not have. One of the questions here when we're starting to put a board together is, can I ask people from my family to be on the board? Or can I ask people who are in the industry, who have the right contacts or work in organizations that would be useful, be on my board? And what we're talking about here really is where people are coming on the board but they have a conflict, in that they have an obligation to something else that might conflict with the obligation to this not-for-profit. Now, absolutely you can, it's all possible. What you need to be looking at is those obligations that they've got. If they can't allow them to be on the board, so for example, if there's someone else who's on a not-for-profit board that's doing essentially the same thing you are, very similar, and you ask them to be on the not-for-profit board, but then you look to contract to that not-for-profit, all of a sudden, any decision they make, it's going to be hard to know whether they're making it for your not-for-profit or the other not-for-profit. And in that situation, it's very hard for them to be able to say that they're executing their obligations as a director effectively. So it would be better not to have them on the board. But that's the conversation and the thinking process you need to go through for anyone on your board is, are there any conflicts that they have, and can those conflicts be managed in a way that allows them still to be effective as a director on the not-for-profit board? The next area you can find more resources to do the doing is volunteers. Now, volunteers sounds like a good idea because they're free, but if you want them to be effective, you really need to do it on purpose. You need to set up a framework for volunteers to work with, because if people just rock up and do a bit and then don't rock up when you expect them to do, it can get very hard to plan the work. So if you're going to have volunteers, there needs to be a level of accountability and clarity on what their roles are, so that they can be held accountable for the work they're doing. Yes, they're doing it for free. That doesn't mean they should be doing a bad job. So having volunteers is definitely an avenue you can go down, but it still requires a little bit of setup in terms of having a framework, making sure that the volunteers are cared for, that they're not put in any sort of danger, that they have the ability to do the work that you're asking them to do, and that they are accountable for the work that they're doing. The last one, and probably the thing that everyone's most nervous about, or the biggest deal, is when you get to a point where you can employ people. Because when you can employ people to do the doing, now you sort of feel, to some respects, like a real not-for-profit. We have people here, we have staff, and they're doing the doing. So when you're at the startup phase, well, how do I start that? So if you want to start employing people, the first thing you need to do is register with the tax office. Make sure that you're registered with them to be an employer, because that will then trigger the fact that you should be collecting PAYG and paying super. The next thing then is to understand, I suppose, the basis you'll be employing people. So having an employment contract or template, but also understanding the awards that people are employed under. Because if you're employing people, you're paying them, they're all paid under awards. Everyone's paid under an award. And if you're paying staff, they need to be paid at or better than the award. Now, this is an area that trips up, especially when you're starting up a not-for-profit and people are engaged and they understand that you don't have a lot of money. So look, they'll offer to say, look, I know that if you're employing me, I should get paid $40 an hour, but look, because you're starting up, look, I'm happy if you pay me $15 an hour. This is a danger zone, because you're then paying them below award. So that can get you into trouble with Fair Work, and it's something you should be very careful of. So in paying people, always pay them above award. If you want to pay someone below award, make sure you get some advice around it, but I would not be doing that as a general rule. Either have people who are volunteers, and they're specifically volunteers and they're not being paid for the work they do, or they're being paid and being paid at award or better. The next thing, and this comes to do with paying people, is superannuation. Now, it's something that everyone is entitled to who's an employee. Everyone who's paid is entitled to. And in fact, if directors are paid as well, they are also entitled to superannuation. Now, there's a lot of things where the ATO is quite happy to work with you if things aren't going well. Super is not one of those things. Super is absolutely something that needs to be paid without question. And to the extent that the reason behind that is it's the employee's money. It's not the business's money. It's not the ATO's money. It's the employee's money. So whatever you do in terms of your not-for-profit, make sure you're on top of your superannuation commitments and you're paying them regularly. Now, they need to be paid quarterly. I'd be recommending paying them monthly, just so that you're making sure they're getting off and you're not getting to a point where there's something you're struggling to pay. You always want to pay those. Like wages first, superannuation second. The next thing which sort of fits in with employees and sort of doesn't is contractors. Now, this can be something that people, especially when you're looking to, well, do we start employing people? Well, maybe we don't. Maybe we go down the contractor path. We just get contractors because that, that's a bit easier. I've found that they're about the same. Like if you do them properly, it takes you about the same amount of effort. With contractors, if they're working just for you, they can be deemed employees anyway. So then you need to have in place the same things as employees, and in particular superannuation. And this is where, if you're going to do contractors, you want to be very clear as to whether they are truly contractors or whether they're deemed employees. Because if they're deemed employees, you need to go down the superannuation path. Again, they're entitled to it. And it's something that you don't want to be going back 2 or 3 years later and realizing, oh, we should have been paying these people super. So contractors, yes, it's an option. Personally, I would be very much looking down the employee path if you're looking to get doers to do the doing, who are going to be working and focused on your organization. If it's someone coming in doing a a small piece of work or an hour here and an hour there, or deliverable, yes, maybe a contractor and they just do that piece of work and that's it, they're done. But if it's someone you're looking for an ongoing relationship, definitely look to go down the employee path. And I suppose to sign off on this video, people ultimately are the greatest asset of your organization. And you want to spend the time making sure you get the framework for your people right and that you are treating them well, because ultimately these are the ones that are going to get you there. These are the ones that are going to drive the purpose, that are going to deliver on what you set up this whole crazy thing to start with. So spending the time on your people is something that you'll always get a return on and you'll always see value in, because again, it is the greatest asset of your organization. So that's about doing the doing and who's going to do the doing. Thanks for watching today. We're doing a whole series of, as I said, videos on helping people understand and start get some thoughts together on how they should run or how they can take care of things to make sure that their not-for-profit is successful. Check the other videos out. We've got other videos on YouTube site too. They're on governance and not-for-profits. But otherwise, thanks for your time today. Appreciate you taking the time to watch. It's Justin Hogg from RightSource.